can answer on that answer.
So what's up, people, and welcome back to Undone. So this is part 3 of the series titled Handheld Blackjack, which sounds like a very strange title until you actually see the episode and you're like, oh, okay, I understand what they're talking about now. I watched part 3 just recently, and I really do like this series. But in any case, part 3 continues on with the story building and somewhat the world building of the series. And I don't mind the pace at which they're going because they're carefully constructing the story so that it isn't rushed. And I really like that because there are certain points of the story that do need time to mature, I guess. And so I'm glad they're going at this pace. Now, Part 1, if you recall, was mostly a character introduction. It didn't even go into a significant amount of plot, especially in terms of all the unusual situations that come up later on. Instead, it focused on the character of Alma and the introduction of who she was and all the supporting character that came about. And in fact, it wasn't until the end of the first chapter that you really started to see a little bit of unusual situations. And then, of course, that made for a very good segue into part 2, where now the main character, Alma, is starting to experience the unusual situations that are going on, and you get to see all those weird dream-like sequences. And the nice thing about that is the way they introduced it, where the main character really isn't sure what's going on, and she has to figure out, how to adapt to a lot of this and how to understand this, made this perfect for, the viewers to understand, and try to learn what's going on. And it didn't feel like it was forced upon you where, a bunch of people are monologuing all throughout the entire thing and trying to show you what this wonderful world and this dream-like sequence is. But it felt more natural in the sense that since she was trying to learn from it, it's also a good way for the viewers to experience it. And in that situation, I actually liked it even better than something like Inception, where they did go into a lot of the monologuing to try to explain what this world was, which always drags the story. This one felt in place because the explanation and the world building was in parallel with the plot. And so when we come to part 3, where finally we're starting to get some opening of what the plot is, it goes really well because it segues from the first 2 parts that actually set up everything and flows well, but at the same time continues to develop these in-depth characters and situations that actually make the story very interesting. This isn't just about let's build a world and let's monologue about all of these things that are going to happen. Instead, everything feels natural and they don't pull back on a lot of the things that a lot of times the series do to build the world. Oh, we're too busy to build the world, so I don't want to talk about character depth. We're too busy to build the world, so who cares about drama right now? We're busy building the world, right? But here, the drama comes as part of the world building. The character depth comes as part of the world building, and because of that, all of that gets blended in well. So if people are complaining about this series being long in the tooth, that its pacing is slow, then I think people don't understand that by balancing between the world building, the character building, the understanding and the introduction of the weird situation, as well as the multiple plots that are going on in the story, then it's unfortunate because this story is well made in that perspective, in my opinion. So in part 3, we start recognizing some very distinct plots that are coming up. One is the one that we saw right from the beginning, which is the character development and the interactions that Alma is having with her sister Becca, her mother, and the other people. And that continues to go on. Even before all of this incident, she didn't have particularly a really smooth relationship with many of her supporting characters. And so it continues to go on, and because of all of these unusual situations, of course, that tends to amplify a lot of the tension that may be going on between many of these characters. So that continues to go on, and that's really nice because if you remember in part 1, I mentioned how I liked this self-reflection that Alma is having and trying to understand herself better based upon the things that she is experiencing with the other people. And that continues to go on and develop. And to be honest, that is probably one of my favorite things about this entire series, because a lot of times when you have these supernatural sorts of events, you tend to focus on the supernatural rather than the drama of the character. In this situation, a lot of the things that are going on doesn't even need the supernatural to go on. The drama itself can be quite interesting at this time, and because it is well focused on top of the supernatural, you see something that you don't see in many of these stories, which is, of course, the character development, the character depth, her psychological views, her emotions, that come out with the trauma and the experiences that she's having with the supernatural. Instead, usually most of these series just go into this is an adventure, and we have this hardline plot where we're trying to solve a mystery. Here, of course, there is that mystery, but it is not, completely that. It actually focuses a lot on the confusion that Alma has and the trauma that she experiences, with her other characters based upon the supernatural experiences that she, has. And so this development I thought was very well done, and I am very happy that Undone continues to focus on that. Now the second one is, of course, this mystery with all of this supernatural situation going on. And yeah, this one is relatively similar to the other stories in that a lot of the mystery gets slowly revealed, and each one of these reveals, such as the part where the father is trying to talk about, life in terms of blocks, and all of these blocks are, if you were a character within that block, then you would see the world different from if you were outside looking down on the blocks. Okay, so those types of things you see in a lot of other supernatural dream sequence sort of events. And so far, everything seems to indicate that, part of this is due to some sort of time shift that she is experiencing. But it's not just that. And so it's interesting because we come back to a lot of the character interactions. And although this time shift is occurring, the responses that she gets from a lot of her supporting characters is very different, right? I mean, Becca is more worried about her wedding, and so she is oblivious to a lot of the things that's happening with Alma. And yet there are even things that she talks about, such as, what bar are you talking about? Which may have been something in passing, but it may indicate that in that particular situation when Alma was talking to Becca in the wedding dress scene, maybe Becca doesn't go to the bar with Alma, in which case maybe this isn't just about time shift. Maybe this is about parallel universe sorts of situations. And then, of course, there's the interaction with the mom, and the big one, which is the interaction with the dad. which is still trying to develop, and I'm not really sure how to grasp that one yet. The father is trying to link into Alma and ask for her assistance to solve the third plot, aside from all of this going on with the unusual supernatural situation, which is that Dad was killed rather than died naturally. And I don't know which way this is going, but this is quite interesting in a sense that now there is this mystery of who might have killed Dad. And it could just end with that in a sense that, somebody tried to kill me and that's why I've asked you and dragged you into this situation. However, the authors or the writers of the story went one step further and seems to be bringing in something that may involve a conspiracy because Father was doing research into this time shift, mental shift sort of research, and that's when he got supposedly killed. And there are these other players that seem to be in there, such as what seems to be a student of his that seemed to be very close to him, and we still don't know what's going on with that, as well as this unknown company that was sponsoring the father to do the research. And so this goes into something that's a lot deeper than, can you help me? There's one person who killed me and you have to look for that one person. This may go beyond that and go into things that involve government conspiracies, in which case, of course, it could go as far down as possible. We're now getting into the La Femme Nikita sort of situation. La Femme Nikita meets Inception sort of situation. But then there's all these other situations that's going on, such as, the interaction that she's having with her boyfriend, which I find to be very fascinating because of the fact that unlike the other characters, the boyfriend's nice, but he's the only one who seems to not even recognize that she's having a problem. Yeah, he asks a few questions, but when she asks things like, did you rearrange the photos? All she says is, no. Well, those things may happen sometimes, and then just is oblivious to it rather than, what the heck is she talking about, and is worried about her. When her boss calls, the boyfriend, and, the boss asks the boyfriend whether Alma is okay, he doesn't particularly really dwell upon it. Now, one possibility is he's that sort of person who tries to run away from difficult situations, and maybe that's why Alma and I forgot the boyfriend's name is having some tension. But on the other hand, why does he try to really hold back on recognizing that there may be a problem? And so does that involve, coming back to the conspiracy and all? And finally, for all we know, this may be all just going on in Alma's head, that none of this is real, and this is just about her coping between what she thinks is real versus what is real. For all we know, Dad may not even be a spiritual character. For all we know, he just may be dead, and this is just a figment of her imagination, just like everything else. But it could go many ways. If the pictures were rearranged, that would indicate that would involve the boyfriend, because who else comes into the house except the boyfriend? Well, maybe Dad. But if he didn't do it, then that would indicate that no one else would rearrange the pictures as well. So what does that indicate in terms of why they're rearranged? Well, there's two possibilities, right? One is that it's a parallel universe and she's traveling from one universe to the other, and the rearranged photos are what changes and what she recognizes different from one universe to the other. The other possibility is this is all a figment of her imagination, so she just imagines the differences within her visions. But in any case, this isn't about answers. We're still only in part 2. This is about questions. And the series is doing well because of the fact that it's opening many parallel questions at once and giving you some interesting aspects with regards to the story. And that is, once again, something I really like about Undone. First of all, it's not just one single plot. There's many different things going on with regards to Alma's character and the tensions that she's getting with all the other friends that she has versus the mystery that's going on and the conspiracy that's going on versus Alma trying to understand what all these new powers are. Each one of these, if they do it well, can make a complete series by itself, but bringing all three in seems to indicate that the world they were building is a relatively complex situation. So I am not sure if Undone completes with this entire mini-series that we have now, or this is just the introduction to what is going to come up. But I absolutely like the way it's going, and I hope that it's the latter, that there's a lot more world building. And a lot of people may complain that this is a pacing issue. But to be honest, for me, I really love it because of the fact that, for me, my experience is from reading manga. And when you understand that after 30 years of something like Battle Angel Alita, you still don't know the back history of someone like Ito, then you can understand that you have to have patience in letting the writers build the world. And the longer they take to build the world, the more detailed they can go. So for me, I want this story to be complex. I want this story to move properly by not avoiding things just for the sake of rushing or rushing things just for the sake of fan service. I would rather see a story really well built up. And so far from what I've seen in part 1, 2, and 3, they're doing a really good job of world building, character building, and plot building. And so I will continue on with watching Undone, and I just hope that this will continue on so that the further you go, instead of getting a lot of answers, you started getting a lot of questions. And that will make you want to continue to watch this for a very long time. And so, Alma, yeah, you keep on going, lady. And I hope we find out more about what's going on between you and your dad and that mystery. And thank you very much for going on this journey so that we could enjoy it by following you. But anyway, that is chapter 3 for Undone. And by the way, if you want to know, the reason for Handheld Blackjack is that is the little device that she is clinging on to try to keep her sanity when all this thing is going crazy. And of course that alone causes even more tension because all the other people around her now have to watch her constantly being playing this blackjack game, this little blackjack computer portable game, so that she could keep her sanity. But everybody else thinks that she's being annoying by ignoring everybody and trying to just play this game. So yeah, all of this is very well done, I think, and it'll be interesting. I hope they don't ruin it by making very simplistic solutions to this relatively complex story. But in any case, that's about it for Undone Part 3. If you saw this, what did you think of it? And if you saw it to the end, please don't spoil, because I really want to experience this fresh as we go along. And I thank you all in advance for that. Anyway, I'll continue on with more Undone chapters in the future. I hope you join me at that time. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, Jaya, nice day, everyone.